Oversight tonight.
The Dan York State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Takeo Comfort Solutions.
So the State House has been a little bit of a turbulent place over the last few days, and it'll be really interesting to see whether the pace of it evens out or whether it becomes a little bit more turbulent based on investigations and the like. Tonight we have the chair of the Oversight Committee who really doesn't have a role in some of the controversies that have gone on so far this week and last week. We'll certainly ask her about that, but there is some stuff that are, in the domain of House Oversight right now that is, percolating and pending, including the veterans home situation. And, we're always checking into how DCYF is doing, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that's on the oversight plate. And to the chair's credit, she has been pretty diligent on these matters of, spending, proper spending, good decision making, and the like. So we'll be on that this evening. And we love having Pat Serpa on, especially when she calls me ahead and matches wardrobe. We are of same color this evening. In the meantime, we are barreling down to a big decision in Washington over witnesses, right? Headlines now are all about the John Bolton. I feel like when you had baseball cards, I'll trade you Bolton for Willie Mays, that kind of a thing. This time I think it's Bolton for Biden. Here's what the network had last time.
President Trump's legal team is trying to convince senators the president did nothing wrong when he asked Ukraine to investigate Joe Biden and his son, Hunter.
The transcript shows that the president did not condition either security assistance or a meeting on anything.
But President Trump may have said something different to his former national security advisor, John Bolton. According to the New York Times, Bolton writes in his upcoming book that President Trump directly linked military aid to Ukraine to an investigation into the Bidens. President Trump's attorneys largely ignored the Bolton news until late Monday night.
Nothing in the Bolton revelations, even if true, would rise to the level of an abuse of power or an impeachable offense.
Some Republican senators say the Bolton development increases the chances at least 4 Republicans will vote with Democrats to hear new witnesses.
Each individual is going to make their own decision, and I don't think they're all settled as a group or as individuals as to exactly how they're going to vote. But I'd like to hear from John Bolton.
Pennsylvania Republican Pat Toomey is pushing a witness swap where the GOP will allow John Bolton to testify in exchange for a witness that supports the president's defense. But that plan is already meeting with resistance.
We're not bargaining with them. We want 4 witnesses and 4 sets of documents. Then the truth will come out.
Joe and Hunter Biden remain high on the Republican wish list of witnesses.
The idea that the Democrats aren't bargaining is nonsense, too. They don't have the majority. And so there's going to be some version of negotiation here if, in fact, we get to the 51 votes necessary for witnesses. And that is, by any chance, still a, in the weekend it was this much, now it's this much. Tomorrow it could be this much, depending on who else supports John Bolton, including John Kelly, the former chief of staff, the general, of course, for Donald Trump, who came out in strong support of John Bolton's character and his truth-telling. So stay tuned. This is only going to come barreling down on Friday, perhaps Saturday, after the senators get a chance to ask their own questions over a 16-hour period of time. All right. The next issue here is that which is at least conversation number 1 this evening, and that is that House Oversight is taking a hard look at the veterans home. This is a headline that has been recent, and here is a Eyewitness News package that kind of lays out the whole story for you.
Issues are between increase in contract services and then also increase in staffing costs when we move into the new facility.
Just a month ago, General Rick Backus spoke to Target 12 investigator Tim White about the money problems surrounding the state's veterans home. In light of a roughly $2 million deficit, several policies were changed. The first, visiting family members at the home in Bristol are now no longer allowed to eat food prepared by the facility. Then occupational and physical therapy were no longer covered for the home's 200 wartime vets.
Do you know how much the policy change saved the veterans home?
Yes, $575,000.
On Thursday, we found out the governor's budget proposal calls for charging residents more to live there. Right now, they give 80% of their income to the home. The new budget calls on 100%. During Friday's taping of Newsmakers, House Speaker Nicholas Mattiello shot down that plan and then weighed in on Backus's work at the home.
It's almost incomprehensible that we've mismanaged it that badly in that short a period of time.
Do you think General Backus should go?
I think that we should do an internal audit, a realistic one, and find out what went wrong, who's not paying attention, because clearly someone is not.
In his letter of resignation, General Backus said, quote, "I have always done my best for the veterans who are residents of the home." But on Friday, the president of the Rhode Island Veterans Home Residents Council said, "When they built this home, they told us we were special. You might as well take the word veterans off the sign and just make it Rhode Island Home." Now this home is in need of a new leader.
A couple $1 million feels like the end of the world in this story. I would never suggest that taxpayer money should be, you know, pocket change at a $2 million level, but it feels like this is really fixable. I mean, you've got some monsters. By the way, welcome. Happy New Year. We haven't seen you in a while.
Nice to see
and
you.
nice sweater.
Yeah,
Nice, you know,
you
it's like
did well.
Good for coordinating. All right, what's your overview?
Can I say one thing in defense of General Backus,
Sure.
Dan? The rules or the charter, whatever you do to nursing homes, calls for someone with nursing home management experience as well as military experience. I understand from talking to people that that's hard person to find.
Sure.
So in defense of General Backus, I do believe he has done his best, but, and he made reference to it in the little opening segue, he talked about the contracts have gone up. Dan, I've been on this very show before, and I have learned that whenever there are problems, they're usually related to contracts, contracts oversight, and contract management. As a matter of fact, I had an oversight meeting scheduled for tomorrow. We're taping this on a Tuesday, and I had an oversight meeting scheduled for tomorrow, Wednesday. And I wanted to know how we got here from there. I'm going to let the Finance Committee deal with the finances, but how did it go so badly so quickly? So just for the people who don't know about the Veterans Home, the older one housed fewer veterans, and it was one facility. The new Veterans Home, it's like 5 wings. I call it a mini Pentagon, and there are 5 different kitchens. I don't know, maybe that's wasteful? What does that do to the cost? Is that a cost driver? I would think so. Is one kitchen talking to another kitchen? I don't know. I know that the staffing, the nurse staffing is a problem because, as I understand it, all of the nurses are part-time. They can call in sick, and I know full-time nurses there. I've heard of full-time nurses there because they come from a pool making $180,000 a year. And given what it is now, I guess good for them, but should it be that way? I don't know. Maybe we have to look at those contracts. So, long story short.
And the nurses are coming from where? Direct hires?
There's the part-time nurses.
Any nurse that's making 180 grand, how's it possible?
It's a pool that I guess they call from. We have a nurse.
Who runs the pool?
I don't know. I don't know that. That's what I want to find out. So I had a meeting scheduled for tomorrow night, and then I was asked by the governor's office if I could hold off because the Tiger team put together a report, and it will be ready around the 31st. So it's kind of dumb, meaningless to have a meeting tomorrow.
Explain the Tiger team.
The Tiger team is a team of experts, I guess, put together by General Backus and Kasim Yarn from the Veterans Association, and they're supposed to be the best minds in the world to try to dive in and figure out what went wrong. So I want to see what they have to say. Really, it makes no sense to have a meeting tomorrow when they say, well, we're putting the finishing touches on the report, and I know that's what they'll say. So if the report comes out on the 31st, that will be our first oversight meeting. And I want to know, what are the cost drivers here? And I have some guesses. I already mentioned the contracts, the nurse nursing staffs. And as far as feeding families, I've gotten mostly positives from constituents who'll contact me, and from non-constituents, frankly, that feel that the family should be fed. And I've only gotten a handful of people who say, frankly, they shouldn't be fed. They should be bringing in their own boxed lunches.
What's the practice in the industry for that?
I hear, and that's another question I'm going to ask, I hear that in most veterans' homes, they are not fed. And I'm not saying if they're having an expensive roast that night and mashed potatoes and a fresh vegetable that you have to give it to the family, but if I'm there visiting a loved one and I want to have dinner with my husband, my mother, my father, because there are women at the veterans' homes too, you can't make me a turkey sandwich, give me an apple and a bag of chips so I can sit there and eat with my father? That's small potatoes to me. In the course of this $10 billion budget, a cup of coffee, a turkey sandwich.
That's the whole story just feels, how do I say this? It feels like an inadequate controversy. You know what I'm saying? We get enough bad stuff that we got to fix from time to time. This one feels like it shouldn't be that simple. I mean, it shouldn't be that difficult. What is the practice of veterans' homes across the country? Is this companionship / meal time spent something that ought to be on the pocket of? Is it the same thing as visiting a loved one in the hospital? I mean, the hospital's not buying anything for you, right? You may, you know, if the patient's not having, you know, like how many times have we visited somebody in the hospital, they don't feel like eating? Oh, okay, I'll take a bite of your Salisbury steak or whatever they give them, right? But the hospitals aren't doing that. But at the same time, if it's culture for the veterans to, because it's not a hospital, it's a place where they live. Just the whole thing seems dumb to me. The whole thing seems dumb.
To feed a family?
No, the controversy seems dumb.
Well,
because it's that families not getting meal accessibility is the thing that ends up blowing the story up for the public. It's always those idiosyncratic parts of a story that grab everybody's attention, and I just think that ought to be self-explanatory. I don't know why that's a big mystery. I don't know why it feeds the controversy, all pun intended. It just ought to be a practice. What do veterans home across the country do? That's the way it goes. All right, that's not, okay, that's settled. What's next?
That's what I want to find out. And I think the other thing that sent the public into orbit was in the budget that the governor proposed. She proposes taking 100% of their pensions as opposed to the 80% that the state
I'm not
takes
sure how
out.
those numbers work out. 100% of the pensions mean, so what is the monthly nut at the veterans home?
I don't know. This is what I
rent?
need to find out. This is what I need to find out. So I'm waiting for the Tiger Team report. I hope it's worth waiting for.
Yeah.
But I have to let finance handle the finances.
Right. But you are going to play a role.
Oh yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
All right. Right? All right, we come back, a couple other things. Stay with us. So we have a report out for IGT and its contract extension. You got to give the House Republicans credit, and Blake Filippi, the minority leader, who pushed the Speaker to this notion that there should be consultancy to try to work out the details and to really understand, you know, who's, I wouldn't say the good guys and the bad guys, but who's closer to the truth and adequate pricing for the expansive gaming project that we have here. So on Thursday, new news, Thursday of this week, we have a press conference between Twin River and IGT, just announced prior to the show today. So it looks like they've got some kind of a compromise that they're going to offer for whatever legislation has to be approved at the General Assembly. In the meantime, the General Assembly gets advised by this new report. So it seems like we're getting closer, right, Chairperson of the House Oversight?
I think so, and I'll be honest with you, I haven't had a chance to read the report in its entirety. I only read what Kathy Gregg's breakdown was in the Providence Journal this morning. So if IGT is happy with it and Twin River is happy with it, and the Finance Committee, I imagine it's all going to go before the Finance Committee. If they pick it apart with our House financial advisors, it'll probably be a go, and I think that's a good thing, because it was even dividing the house apart, and I had constituents call me who said, you know, put it out to bid, don't just give it away, don't give the store away. So I want to digest that, so I don't want to comment, but if it satisfies all parties and it looks like it's good for the state, number one, I hope it'll be a go.
Yeah, Twin River was you know, did a pretty good job of arguing that it ought to be put out to bid. Here's the problem: Twin Rivers deal wasn't put out to bid.
Right, right.
So, you know, they barked a lot on this one, but believe me, they wanted to make a deal with IGT. Now, I don't know what the nuances of that are, and this consultancy report shows that IGT's deal might be a little fat in places, which is something that we always wondered about here, so we will see. But IGT is the expert in the mechanics of the lottery system, and Twin River is the expert in the entertainment of the gaming system, the gaming business, and I'm hoping that the two of them at least somewhat are staying in their lanes here.
Sounds
right?
like a marriage made in heaven to me.
Well, it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be, but publicly held companies are always looking for that extra edge, and man, it's a money business.
I agree.
Have you know what you ought to do on House Oversight, just for the ha-has? You ought to count for the record the number of lobbyists that have been active on this story from both sides.
Dan. I've lost count.
Was there anybody who was a lobbyist in this state who can spell their name right on a business card who wasn't getting a piece of this action?
Off the top of my head, I can't think of anyone.
Unbelievable.
Yep.
Right? What's happening with DCYF these days?
Well, unfortunately, I read another report about Communities for People. They run group homes in the state of Rhode Island, and I think they have a couple in Massachusetts. And Jennifer Griffith, the child advocate, sent me another article. We contract with Communities for People. The child advocate's office had to go into another number of group homes because of complaints from parents, from residents themselves, and they found, and I'm going to call them children because they're under 18, found children unsupervised, no adults on the premises, having sex, drinking, running around. So it's like, here we go again. But my concern is that these children are placed there by a social worker. They're still active, and I'm not accusing anybody because I haven't had a hearing yet. My concern is these children are placed there by a social worker. The social worker is supposed to be active in the case. Why aren't the social workers going out to check these behaviors or lack of oversight in the homes and reporting it back? Or if they are reporting it back, why isn't someone in administration doing something about it? And Dan, I said this off the top of my head. I said, you know, Jennifer, the governor seems to be wanting to phase out the training school. I think it can hold up to 110, 120 kids. On any given day now there are 30, maybe 40 in that big facility. I said to Jennifer, you know, maybe we ought to make the training school less, get some architects in there, make it look less correctional, bring those kids out of these group homes.
By the way, make sure everybody understands, the training school is the jail for kids.
Right.
Okay,
so remodel it, redesign it, separate them out, because the kids in the training school are locked up. They don't have bus passes, they don't go downtown, they don't go away to school, but the kids in group homes do. I said to Jennifer, maybe we ought to just cut that space out, remodel it, redesign it, bring the kids out of these group homes so that we can watch them, put our JPWs, the juvenile program workers that work in the training school, in uniform, take them out of uniform and put them in these group homes.
You want to mix those populations?
No. They're going to be separate and apart. And it's just something that came off the top of my head. Redesign that so it's not correctional, it's more home-like. Because group homes tend to be old houses.
All right, well, we'll see what your work is on that.
Yeah.
What do you think about the medical marijuana, the progress here? As a rep, just as a rep.
As a rep, the reports I get from my constituents, they don't feel we're ready for it. They feel that the social costs don't...
Meaning growing the three current...
You're talking about that.
The medical marijuana.
Oh, I'm sorry. The medical marijuana.
Looks like the Speaker and the Senate President have acquiesced to the idea that they're not going to override regulatory matters here. It may actually reflect well and keep the cultivator business in place and make whatever more facilities that are developed just retail only.
But you know, Dan, the last conversation I had was with Representative Scott Slater, who's kind of the godfather of medical marijuana, and I think he told me that there are 20,000 people in the state of Rhode Island with cards.
Yeah, 18 plus, yep.
Okay, so we'll call it 20,000. So they're going to have all of these centers. I think it's just going to dilute the business all around. And I'll bet some of them go to Massachusetts, too. I'll bet some of them grow their own.
Yeah, well, I think the play has always been to put some people in place so that when we legalize marijuana, their facilities available. Meanwhile, the governor's throwing out New Hampshire liquor store-like programs. You're not, I think that's what you were trying to tell me. You're not too much in favor of that right now.
No, not right now.
All right, when we come back, the controversy at the State House, what one rep might think. Stay with us. So this is interesting video, both last night and today. Last night's video at the dumpster was a response to a flurry of phone calls that were being made from the State House to the state police and people like me. People in media were all being notified that materials were being dumped in the dumpster from the offices of the Joint Committee on Legislative Services. Turns out the story this morning is because they had some water in the office. And the big question is whether or not records were dumped. I think these days you put records in a shredder. I don't know that you throw them in a dumpster. But you know, Pat, what this does is reflect on the tension that's going on in the building right now regarding this convention center audit controversy that the speaker's involved in. What's the pulse up there right now?
I think you hit the nail on the head. It's tense. We're all wondering. I give everybody the benefit of a doubt because I want people to give me the benefit of a doubt. I think that the timing is bad, but you said it yourself. If the records are sensitive, we're going to shred them. And those dumpsters, Dan, that you showed on the lead, we have those dumpsters outside all of the time. On any week, I can
clarify what you just said. You don't want to suggest that you would ever be involved in shredding sensitive documents.
Me?
Yeah.
Never.
Okay. I just don't want you to leave that there and all of a sudden, this just in, Pat Serpa says, hey, we'd shred them if we had, smoke them if you got them. I just want to make sure that you're on.
But they throw away documents.
Yeah. But let me ask you this. Is there formality of your role as House Oversight Chairperson to ask about how this JCLS budget is being managed and what the Speaker's role in asking for an audit is? True oversight, and this is not a reflection of you as a person or as a rep, but systemically, true oversight would be active almost pretty immediately on this.
Well, my committee is a creation of the House of Representatives. So how does a creation of the House of Representatives investigate the House of Representatives? I don't know that.
Congress does it.
I don't know how to do that, Dan.
Yeah,
and
I got a good idea. Ask.
I trust the state police.
And create legislation and authority for House oversight to not necessarily be subordinate to the Speaker.
That's a possibility. I could consider that, absolutely. But the state police are there. You saw them on the lead. So what do I know? I'm not an investigator, but I think maybe some legislation, that's reasonable, in case this ever happens again.
What's the pulse in terms of the Speaker's leadership confidence up there right now?
I was with a room full of reps on Thursday night. I didn't sense anything particularly onerous. I did hear Blake Filippi on talk radio, I think maybe Friday morning with Tara, expressing his doubt that
and so did State Representative John Lombardi on talk radio with Dan, and with the 20 Democrats who have been charging up the Speaker's wazoo lately. Anyway, we're out of time, so you're off the hook.
Okay.
It's good to see you.
Okay, good to see you. Thank you.
Final word when we come back. Yeah, so the State House is a little bit of a tension convention now. We'll see whether that calms down or gets a little bit more active based on what the state police may or may not tell us about their look-see. In the meantime, please keep your eye on Washington. I mean, we are heading to the peak of the debate on witnesses, and it's only a day or two away. We'll see you tomorrow, and of course on the radio at 3 on WPRL. Thanks for tuning in. Good night.